Let's talk about the exciting new Documents feature built into FlyQ EFB version 2.4. You'll notice it immediately whenever you tap on the map and you see the tab bar appear at the bottom of the screen. At the lower right is a new icon that says Documents. Click on that. Now, there are more than 200 documents that are built into the product, and I'll show you that in a minute. But by default, we preload, it actually downloads the first time you run the app, the pilot's guide and the sectional and tack legend chart. Let's take a look at those for a second. First, let's take a look at the pilot's guide. The pilot's guide is a PDF file. So the PDF files have multiple pages. You see that at the bottom of the screen. If you tap on it, there's a little tab bar that appears. And you can jump to any particular page that you like. Very, very quickly, very easily like that. Of course, like in other places of FlyQ, you can just take your finger, flick it left and right, and so on. If you want to make it bigger, you take two fingers, make it bigger and smaller, and so on. There's a button bar at the top of the screen that will disappear in a couple of moments to give you more space to read the document. When you tap on the document, it comes back, and of course you have the Done button, which closes the document. Notice also that there is a new tag next to the sectional and tack chart, but the new tag that was next to the pilot's guide is no longer there. That, of course, is because we've already read it. The new tag appears whenever you add a new document, of course, but also if the underlying document, like let's say it's an FA document, is updated by the FA, it will automatically load in the new document and mark it as new so that you can see it. We'll talk more about that in a second. Let's go back to the pilot's guide. So the other things that you can see with the product is there's a full screen button, looks like two arrows. That's extremely useful when you're in split screen mode, not so useful here. Click Done and you go back to the primary view. For a PDF document, there's a 4 square button like this that gives you thumbnail previews of all the different pages. And again, you can jump to that, like jump to this page, whatever it is. If you want to rename the document, you just tap on it. So we'll call that Pilot Guide FlyQ, for example. Hit Return. Now the name is changed. Notice when I hit the Done button and we go back, you can see that the name has indeed been changed. Okay, let's open that up again. And the other things that you can do is you can send on the right hand side, either send it to a wireless printer or you can email it to yourself. Those are the two icons on the left. Alright, so pretty straightforward. Let's get out of this. Incidentally, this is what the sectional and tack legend chart looks like. So basically what we've done is, we'll do this for more documents as well, but what we've done so far is we've taken all the legend material that you see on the sectional and we've isolated that into its own document. Okay, so it's much easier to follow. Alright, let's see what other kind of documents you can add to this. To add a document, there in the upper right hand corner there's a plus button. The plus button on an iPad generally means add to the document. So let's do that. I'll hit the plus button. And it asks me, do I want to add a folder? And we'll talk about that in a second. You can organize these documents into your own folders. But I just want to add a document, so I'll click Add Document. And as you can see, I immediately see a list of different things that I can add. For example, there's categories on the left side. So these are all the FA charts. These are the weather charts, or weather information. FA chart supplements, which basically means the AFDs. Search and rescue information, all of the cap grids and so on. All of the various FA charts, all the various FA publications, and so on, plus our own Seattle Avionics created things. So let's add a couple of them. Let's go to the FA VFR charts, and we'll add in a flyway document for, say, Seattle. So this has been something that's been missing in the product. You couldn't get to basically the back of the tack charts. Alright, so let's find Seattle. We'll take a look at the Seattle flyway chart. Now, by the way, there's a check mark that appears to it now. Previously, the icon next to it is orange. Orange, as a key on the top of this indicates, means that the document is on the server, but not yet downloaded. Once it's downloaded, the little icon will become green. Okay, so let's take a flyway chart. Let's also take the Seattle tack. And while we're at it, let's pick a couple of other things too. Let's go to the weather category on the left. I want to download the weather services diagram, and maybe from the IFR category, I'd like to download the procedures and airport diagram legend. In the upper right hand corner, there's a blue button that says Add. When I click the Add, it just confirms that I want to indeed add these 4 documents, which I do. So I click OK. And then The system is told to download the documents, so we'll just take it a couple of seconds to do. You'll see it appear in just a moment. All right. So now what it's doing is it's downloading the thumbnails for the tax and for the other documents. It's very quick, very easy to do. And a couple of other notes here. They each now have a green dot next to them. The green dot, just like in the previous add document, means that the particular document is downloaded and ready for use. If you see one turn to yellow, it means that it's in the process of being updated. And if it's red, it means that there's some kind of a problem downloading it. All right, so pretty straightforward, pretty easy to do. Now let's start to organize these documents a little bit. So we're going to add folders. I will once again hit that plus button in the upper right corner. But this time I'll pick the second choice, add folder. And new folder is really not a very exciting name. So let's call this one, VFR. For all of my VFR documents, I'll hit add. All right, now, unlike on, say, your Mac or your PC, you can't just drag a document into the folder, and that's intentional. We want to make sure that when you fly, you don't inadvertently flick something and move a document in a place where you can't find it. So you've got to be a little bit more explicit about doing that. So what you do is there's an edit button, which is next to that plus button, towards the top on the upper right side. I'll click on edit. And now, this is how you delete documents by, of course, clicking the X, or you can drag and drop a document into another folder. So I have two kind of VFR style charts. So I'll take that Seattle Flyway chart, it's over here, and I'll drag it into my VFR folder. And I'm also going to take, what else? The Seattle TAC, drag that into my VFR folder. And then when I'm done, I just hit done. Now if I tap on the VFR folder, you of course will see the two new documents. It has to update the icon for it just because it's in a new folder. And there you go. To get out of that, to go back to the previous folder, I hit the Documents button at the top, the blue kind of back arrow at the upper left. Now we're back at the other level. You can also rename documents from this level as well and delete. So let's talk about that. Again, to make sure that you don't do it by mistake, we make you hit the edit button first. Again, this keeps you from doing it by accident while you're flying. So let's rename Aviation Weather Services to a name that's maybe a little bit more obvious. Remember that you can actually open up the document if you like, or you can rename it from this level if you want. So I'm just going to call that WX. But now that I think about it, I don't really want the document at all, so I'm going to click the X to do it. Now, this, by the way, is something too that I inadvertently did miss a little bit, and instead of clicking the X, I tapped on the document. This is another way that you can move a document into a folder. So you don't have to move a document into a folder which is currently on the screen. If you have lots and lots of different documents, lots and lots of different folders, you can move a document in any folder you like. I'll tap off that. Now let's actually delete the document. So yes, it asked me to confirm that. Of course I say yes. Document gets deleted. And at this point, I will say done. So I'm done editing my documents. By the way, if you take a look at the VFR folder on the upper left side, notice that there's a 2 in parentheses. The 2, of course, means that there are 2 documents in there. You can create subfolders. So if I had another folder inside there, that number would be 3. 1 for the new folder and 2 for the documents. So let's add in a new folder by hitting that plus button. I'll click on Folder. And this time I want something to do with my specific flight plans. So I'm going to keep track of all of my flight plans kind of individually. So my flight plans. I'll click Add. Okay, so what am I doing here? Well, let's take a look. Let's actually go in and create a flight plan. So go up to the top in that search box. I'm going to create a flight from my home airport, which is PAE, down to an airport near Portland, Oregon, which is called HIO. I will hit a space and then put V, meaning route me on Victor Airways, and hit search. This will create the flight plan for me. Should be very fast. All right, so here's my flight plan coming onto the screen now. I'm flying from Payne to Seattle, a couple of fixes, then I'm in HIO. Okay, easy enough. Now, one of the things that people often want to do is they want to save these documents for use a little bit later. So now if I go to my WX brief, here's my Lockheed Martin flight plan briefing for this particular flight plan. It's already created automatically for me, but I want to save this for later use to my documents. I do that by hitting kind of the iPad generic button for saying I want to do an action. That's towards the upper right of the screen, and it looks like a box with an arrow coming out of the top of it. So I'm going to click on that button. Again, that's called the action button. You can also use this to email the document or print it, but in this particular case, I want to save the document, save this to my documents. So when I click that, it asks me, well, that's great, but where do you want to save this document? Which folder do you want to put it in? Well, in this case, I'm going to tap on My Flight Plans because that's what it is. So it's now My Flight Plan. I also, of course, want to file my flight plan. So I'm going to go to the FA Plan tab, review this information here, and so on. And now I'm going to hit the File button below the word Navlog. So I'll click File. This gets filed with Lockheed Martin. And once again, there's an action button towards the top on the upper right. I'll click that. And instead of emailing or printing it, I will also save it to Documents and put it again in my Flight Plans folder. Let's close that. Let's take a look at those two documents. To take a look at the documents I just saved, you tap somewhere on the screen, hit the Documents tab. Okay, now remember that I put these into a folder called My Flight Plans. You'll immediately notice that there's a 2 next to that, meaning that there are now 2 documents in there. So let's tap on My Flight Plans. And here indeed are the Lockheed Martin weather briefing, Lockheed Martin saved flight plan, and the weather brief. Let's tap on those. So here's my flight plan submission, and the next document is a weather brief. And there you go, all right there. Okay, nice and easy to do, very easy way to organize some things. We can do more than that though too. So let's say that this were an IFR flight plan. I actually planned it as VFR, but let's say that was IFR. So let's go to my flight plan. I'll take a look at my Navlog, and I'm flying into HIO. So let's tap on HIO anywhere in that row at the bottom of the screen. And let's pull up some procedures for Hillsborough. So I tap on Procedures. I haven't actually downloaded these yet, but let's say that I just want to save something like, oh, I don't know. Let's take a look at the RNAV approach right here. Since I haven't downloaded it yet, the system will download it for me. If that's the approach that I want to, now check this out. On the left side of the screen, there's an action button, just like there was elsewhere in the product. When I click on action, I can now do something called Save to Documents again, in addition to emailing and printing. Once again, it asks me where I want to put it, so I'll save my flight plans, and there it goes. Let's go back to Documents, and notice that in the folder that we were just looking at, it now tells me, here you go. Here's the PDF file that we were just looking at. This is the approach plate, and so on, all neatly organized for me. I would note, by the way, that when you display it this way, it is just a document. That is, it's just a picture. It is not geo-referenced, so it's not quite the same as viewing it in the regular view inside the proc, so there's a little bit difference there. Okay, now let's take a look at how else you can add documents. So I'm going to go back to my main document level, and let's see, what else can I add? Let's say that there are some other documents that I simply want to see in the product. Some things that people may send me, or emailing it, or just generally how do you add new documents? Well, once again, you hit the plus, hit Add Documents, and we already saw that you can add things using the library, but what else can you do? You can also add documents from photos. You can either take a new photo with your iPad, or you can go to the photo library. Let's take a look at that. Let's see, lots of product pictures. My daughter tends to use the iPad, so there's lots of pictures there. We can find something that's fun. All right, so let's say that you had a really great dinner on a flight, or a really great breakfast, and you want to keep track of it. Of course, this could be a picture of your friend, it could be a picture of an FBO, could be a picture outside the window on the flight, whatever it may be. So we can now add that. Hit the Add button, again in the upper right corner of the screen. And we say Add to Documents. In a moment, you'll see it appear over here in the document screen. By the way, when you add a new document, it automatically goes into whatever folder you were last open. So right now, since I was in the home area, I was just in the plain document section, it will add it to Documents right over there. Okay? And there it is. There's a preview of my document. If I really want to see my breakfast, which looks pretty good, there it is. Okay? Other ways to add things. I'm going to again just demonstrate that you can add this to different places. So let's go into my VFR category. I'll hit the plus and add documents. You can also email a document to yourself, and that tells you how to do it. We can import all kinds of different documents, not only images and PDF files as you might imagine, we can also import Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel files, and so on. You can even get documents very, very soon by using our new online flight planner, which is, of course, FlyQ Online. Simply go to flyq.seattleavionics.com, and although not at this writing in the product quite yet, you'll have the ability to import, manage, rename, and so on, all of your documents, and even by groups, so you can create groups of users from FlyQ Online. So let's say they want to add a different type of document. One of the things I mentioned before is that FlyQ EFB has a very unique ability to automatically update documents that are stored on the web as they change, like FAA documents. So let me give you an example of that. I'm going to add a new type of document, so I'll hit plus in the corner and say add a document. But this time, instead of using the library to pick a predefined FAA chart, I'm just going to go to Web Page. So I hit the Web tab. I'm going to go to aeronav.faa.gov, the FAA's website. And I'm going to hit Airport Status and Delays. All right, so here's the page that they have. This is the status and delay page. And I'm going to hit the button that says Add in the corner, in the upper right corner of the screen. Do I want to add it to the document manager? Yes, I do. And in a few seconds, it will be added onto my screen here. In this case, in the VFR section. Notice that the item is now red. The red, of course, means that it hasn't been loaded. The yellow, though it flashed briefly, meant that it was loading it, and now it is fully there and it's green. So if I want to look at the flight delay information, I just tap on that, and there's the web page. Now, again, what's particularly interesting about this is that every hour or so, the system will automatically update all the documents it knows about. So right now, it looks like ORD is experiencing flight delays. If tomorrow or the next day they're different airports, when you go back to this page, I'm going to hit done now. When you go back to this page, you'll see the new button appear again in about an hour or so every time it reloads this and updates it with fresh information. It's a very, very cool feature, very useful for any documents if you have a flight school, a flight department, you and your buddies share a plane, anything like that, where you want to make sure that the current information is always on everyone's iPad. The ability to automatically update documents as they change is a very unique and very exciting feature in FlyQ EFB's document support. One other note here on adding documents, although I did add a web page, it is more primarily made for if somebody sends you the URL to a PDF or to a graphic, something like that. There are a couple of web pages that don't render too well in the product, so you may find that there are a few times where if you go to a web page and try to add it, it doesn't look right. There are just some limitations to the system. But for a lot of web pages, it works very, very well. And for any time that's a PDF or a graphic file or some sort, it really works terrifically. So that gives you some sense of what the new document tab in FlyQ EFB looks like. And I hope you get the idea that this is a very, very major addition to the product. For Seattle Avionics, I'm Steve Pedrachik. Thank you.